Hello there everyone and welcome back to our virtual science classroom. This is our teacher Daryl Del Mundo, and today we will have a new discussion. But first, I just want to thank you for our simple prayer for this morning. And for our secretary, do not forget to check your attendance. How many boys and how many girls do we have today? Okay? Then send to me the final list in our group chat. Thank you so much, Secretary, in advance. So our quarter two, week number 5 is all about asexual and sexual reproduction. Basically, we will know how do organisms multiply or proliferate. Paano ba sila dumami? Kasi ito yung isa sa pinaka-basic thing na ginagawa ng isang organism is to reproduce or multiply. So we are going to tackle about asexual and sexual reproduction. So this module is divided into 4 lessons, namely, number 1, asexual or vegetative reproduction in plants. Lesson 2, asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms and in some multicellular organisms. Lesson number 3, sexual reproduction in multicellular organisms. And number 4, differences and similarities of the two types of reproduction. So we are going to tackle all those 4 lessons for this week. So as we look back, all you have to do is to identify what organelle is asked in our diagram. So we have, for example, number 1, 2, 3. Okay, what is number 1? For example, I will give you the answer for number 1. This is cell wall. Okay, ano kayang cell ang may cell wall? Diba? We have plant cell and animal cell. So label the parts of a cell and answer the question below. So the question is, what kind of cell is illustrated? Can you guess? Ano yung may cell wall? Tulad sa number 1. This is, okay, very good. A typical plant cell. So pag sinabi nating typical plant cell, class, nandun lahat yung organelles niya. Meaning to say, lahat ng mga organelles na pwede nating makita sa mga cells ay inilagay lahat dito. Okay, but it doesn't mean na ang bawat cell meron yan lahat. Okay, so yung iba wala. So pag sinabi natin typical plant cell or typical animal cells, lahat ng organelles na pwedeng makita, inilagay doon. Naliwanag? Okay, so this is a plant cell, an example of that one. So for lesson number 1, we are going to tackle about asexual or vegetative reproduction or propagation. So as a brief introduction, vegetative reproduction or propagation is a form of asexual reproduction in plants in which multicellular structures become detached from the parent plant such as root, stem, or a leaf and develop into new individuals that are genetically identical or having the same traits with the parent plant. These structures are called vegetative propagules. Formation of these structures does not involve two parents. So kahit isang parent lang, okay na yon. Okay, the process involved in asexual reproduction. So meaning to say not two parents involved in this type of reproduction, but only one parent will do. Okay, asexual reproduction is a process in which new organism is produced from a single parent without the involvement of gametes or sex cells. So kapag sinabi nating vegetative propagation or reproduction, ito yung mga parte ng plants or plant parts na kung saan pwede silang mag-reproduce. For example, yung roots, yung stems or leaves. Okay, pwede natin yung gamitin. So we have here some examples. We have wild strawberry. Meron tayong tinatawag na part niya na runners. And then we have onion bulbs, this part. And then we have potato plant. Ito yung part na yun, yung tuber. Okay, then we have here a multicellular organism. This one is a hydra, another example, but we are going to focus here in plants. Okay, so yung mga plants na yan. So etong onion bulbs na to, yan yung part ng plant na pwede nating padamihan. Okay, so yung tuber, ganun din. Part din to ng plant. So roots yan. Runners din, ganun din. Ito naman ay stem. So, meaning to say, yung mga part na yan ng plants na yan, pwede natin yung gamitin sa pag-reproduce ng the same kind. So, yan yung mga tinatawag natin vegetative propagules. Ito yon. Okay. So another one, this is a question that maybe you are aware of. Okay, are you aware how plants like potato, banana, this is not a banana tree but a banana plant. Okay, then ginger, strawberry, bryophyllum like katakataka, water hyacinth, and onion. So as you can see, these are all the examples of vegetative propagation or vegetative reproduction. Itong mga nodes na to na makikita natin sa potato, pwede natin yung i-reproduce. Hiwain mo yan sa hawain mo siya sa apat, itanim mo yan, magiging apat yung patatas mo. And dito naman sa part na to, sa katakataka leaves, it is an example of bryophyllum. So, sa leaves niya, may mga tumutubo ng newly plant. Then, dito naman sa part na to ng ginger, ito ay root. So, pwede mo rin itanim yan. So, pag putol-putulin mo yung mga roots na yan, pwede mo silang itanim. Same as with the stem of the onion and the stem of the strawberry, and even here sa roots din ng ating water hyacinth. So those are the examples of our vegetative propagation. So we have two types of it, natural and artificial. We are going to discuss first natural. Natural vegetative propagation or reproduction shows how potatoes can be propagated. From a single potato, several new potato plants can be reproduced or produced. Aside from potato, onion, strawberry, ginger, banana, water hyacinth, and katakataka undergo vegetative reproduction, like what I have said a while ago. So vegetative reproduction is form of asexual reproduction in plants that produce offspring as the same as the parent. These traits are in the form of codes contained in genes. So genes are found in the chromosomes which are in the nucleus of the cell. So napag-aralan natin kung ano yung mga namamana, di ba? Since galing lang sila sa iisang parent, so the same yung genes na makukuha nila. So we have here bryophyllum, bulbis or the bulbs, the tubers, stolons, and then corms, and then roots katulad ng carrots. So ano example ng stolons natin? We have vallisneria and strawberry. Bulbs natin is onion. Then we have corms, yung colacacia and then ginger. Then tuber natin yung potato. Then root natin yung radish, carrots, and etc. Okay. So examples of vegetative propagules in some plants. So we have here eye in potato. So eye of the potato tuber. Eye is a half moon like structure in potato. These eyes indicate the position of nodes and internodes which new plant grows and develops. So pwede nyo tignan yan. Siguro parang mga bilog-bilog na maliliit yan dun sa patatas. In potato, there are several buds on its surface called eye. A piece of potato, at least with one eye, is planted on the soil and develop into a new plant. So you can try that. Pwede kayong magkaroon ng maraming patatas sa sarili nyong bahay. Okay, then letter B, we have rhizome of the ginger. So rhizome is a modified stem that grows horizontally and can produce the shoot and root system of the new plant. So in ginger, plants are produced by the underground stem called rhizome. So mukha siyang ugat, di ba? So, but this is a specialized stem. Okay, so para dun tutubo yung leaves niya, dun din tutubo yung roots niya. Okay? And next, we have letter C, onion bulb. So, bulb is a short modified underground stem surrounded by fleshy modified leaves that contain stored food or that is used for the onion to, grow and at the same time magkaroon siya ng halaman or leaves and then ng roots. So, yung root and shoot system. So, that is for the shoot within the bulb. And in onion, new plants are produced from the bulb. So, which means this is an underground stem with thick leaves. And then we have letter D, runners of strawberry. Ito yung parang extension sa part na yon ng baba ng halaman ng strawberry. So this runner or stolon is a horizontal stem that runs above the ground and produce new clone plants. So in plants like strawberry, the shoot or a runner with the buds bent towards moist land and grow into a new plant. So para siya nag-extend. Kapag nakita siya ng moist plant, automatically tutubuan na siya ng root system. Next, we have the sucker of banana. So sucker is a lateral shoot that develops from rhizome and emerges from the soil, usually near the parent plant. So makita niyo pag meron kayong mga uh, banana plant or banana tree sa probinsya, makikita niyo meron silang mga nakausli sa gilid. So in banana, the side shoots called suckers from the mother plant grow and develop into a new plant. While letter F, offset of water hyacinth, and para siyang connection, para magamigit na connection sa dalawang water hyacinth. So offset is a short, thick runner like the branch which produces a new plant at its tip. So water hyacinth, as one of the fastest growing plants, reproduces primarily by way of offset. So which means eventually form daughter plants. Each plant additionally can reproduce thousands of seeds each year, biruin nyo yun, and can remain viable of more than 28 years. This can have a negative effect in the aquatic ecosystem kasi pwede silang mag-proliferate, pwede silang dumami ng sobra-sobra. So, yun yung downside dahil sobrang dami nila mag-produce. Okay, and then letter G, leaf buds of Bryophyllum in Katakataka leaves. So leaf buds, it is a vegetative propagule in Bryophyllum or Katakataka plants which can grow and develop into new plants. So it reproduces with the help of its leaves. A Bryophyllum leaves contain various bulbs on its margin. When the buds fall on moist soil, it will give rise to a new plant. One single plant can produce many new plants under favorable conditions. So, ayun yung mga bagay na makikita natin when it comes to vegetative propagation of plants. Medyo lesser yung ano natin, yung time and effort kasi mismong part lang ng plants, pwede mo na siyang i-reproduce. Next in line, we have artificial vegetative propagation or reproduction. Several artificial methods are developed for vegetative reproduction, which are commonly used to grow many plants from one plant. So these referred to as artificial vegetative propagation. Some of these methods includes grafting, cutting, layering, and tissue culture. So these are some examples of the common artificial vegetative propagation. So meaning to say, meron tayong isang bago dito yung tissue culture. So ito yung medyo modern na. Okay, so these are the methods and descriptions. So number one, grafting. So in grafting, a twig of one plant called scion is kept over the cut stem of another. So plant called stalk. Then they are tied up together. The tissue of the stalk and scion combine to form a high-yielding and disease-resistant species of plants. Okay, so that is grafting. Susugatan yung kabila and then i-connecta dun sa kabila and then itatay nila. Then we have simple layering or layering. So it is a young, healthy branch that is bent down towards the ground and covered with moist soil. After some time, roots develop from the covered part. So this is called the layer. This branch can be cut to form a new plant. So may mapapansin kayo na ibang mga halaman sa probinsya, medyo talagang binibent down nila towards the moist soil that is we know intentionally na ginagawa nila. Then number 3, we have cutting. So in cutting, healthy young grown stem of a plant having bud is cut off and planted in moist soil. So the cutting develops roots and develop into a new plant. Then the last one, the modern one, is tissue culture. In tissue culture, a piece of tissue is cut off, is cropped from the growing tip of a plant and kept in a nutrient medium. So under a controlled condition, the hormone present in the medium helps in a cell division and develop into tiny plantlets. So it helps to develop roots and shoots. The plantlets then grown in a moist soil and develop into full-grown plants. So kinukuha nila yung tissue part na yun, then nilalagay nila sa isang petri dish. Then doon nila pinapadami or nire-reproduce, pinopropagate so that the plant will become newly plant and then pwede na nila itong itanim later on. And then we have natural versus artificial vegetative propagation. So natural and artificial vegetative propagation are the two types of vegetative reproduction or propagation in plants. So the main difference between natural and artificial vegetative propagation is that natural vegetative propagation naturally occurs in plants. So meaning to say, parte na ng plants. Whereas artificial vegetative propagation occurs due to the interference of men. So merong intervention ng tao. Okay, so the natural vegetative propagation occurs through roots, valves, corms, tubers, suckers, rhizomes, runners, and then plantlets from the medium that we have tissue culturing and etc. Then the artificial vegetative propagation occurs through budding, grafting, layering, cutting, and tissue culture. Okay, then the advantages of the vegetative propagation in plants. Number one, it allows developing new plant very quickly. Number two, exact copies of the parent plants are produced. Number three, plants at the early stage of growth need less attention. And number four, new variety of plants can be developed in this different type of vegetative propagation. So those are the advantages of this one. But many disadvantages of we can see in vegetative propagation is that there is no, maybe we can say, uh, in doing the artificial one, you need a lot of skills to learn because grafting, layering is or tissue culturing is not an easy task to do. Okay, so let's proceed to lesson number two. So for lesson number two, this is about asexual reproduction in some unicellular organisms. So we are going to jump into single cell organism. So asexual reproduction in unicellular, for our example in this case, we have bacterial cell. So this is what it looks like. So many unicellular organisms reproduce asexually. So in this process, parent organism either splits or a part of the parent organism separates to form a new organism. So these are several types of asexual reproduction. And it is important to know how unicellular organisms reproduce asexually. So pag sinabi natin asexual, the letter A at the beginning of the word means absent. So it doesn't need sex cells or gametes for them to be able to reproduce. So in this type of reproduction, the offspring is genetically identical to the parent. Ibig sabihin, copycat. Okay? Carbon copy or Xerox copy or photocopy siya ng parent. Kung ano yung parent, yun at yun din yung kanyang offspring. You will learn this type of asexual reproduction in the next lesson. So in this case, we have the bacterial cell. As they split, they are very identical to the parent. Okay, kung gaano kadami yung uh, kanyang flagella or kung gaano kadami yung cilia or kung anong itsura mismo ng parent. Ganun din yung mga offspring niya, walang pagkakaiba. Very identical to the parent. So we have other types of asexual reproduction. So number one, fission. Basically binary fission. So in fission, the cell divides to form two identical daughter cells. Each daughter cell continues to grow until it becomes as large as the parent cell. So bacteria and amoeba undergo binary fission. So this is the parent cell, nucleus divides, cytoplasm divides, then two daughter amoebae or ito na yung part kung saan they are already split to one another. Then in amoeba, the nucleus divides into two equal parts. This is followed by the division of the cytoplasms, resulting to two daughter amoebae, which are genetically identical with the parent. Kaya pag nagkaroon kayo ng amoebiasis, di ba, ito yung sa tiyan nyo na hindi na ito matatanggal actually. Made-deactivate yung amoeba, but they can reproduce. Okay, so pwede siyang ma-activate ulit. For example, nakainom kayo ng mga contaminated na drinks. So doon matitrigger ulit yung amoeba nyo sa tiyan and then yun yung amoebiasis na tinatawag. Nagkakaroon kayo ng excessive vomiting and even LBM. Okay, yung loose bowel movement. Then, delikado. So all you have to do is to be careful with this type of microorganisms kasi they are very harmful to our health as well. So number two, we have budding. is another type of asexual reproduction that commonly found in yeast. Hydra sponges reproduce this way. So in budding, a new individual may form as an outgrowth of the parent. So the outgrowth of the parent separates from the parent and becomes a new individual. So parang nagkakaroon ng ay nakausli dun sa katawan ng parent, and then yun yung nagiging another offspring or new offspring or yung kanyang baby. So dun sila nagpapadami in the process of budding. So this is the mature yeast cell, and then makikita nyo unti-unti lumalaki yung part na kung saan we call it bud. And then we have number 3, spore formation. So spore formation occurs in both unicellular and multicellular organisms. This process takes place in plants. In spore formation, the plant or the parent plant produces hundreds of reproductive units called spores in its spore case. So when this spore case of the plant burst, para siyang mga powder na nakapalibot sa loob ng plants. So these spores travel in air and land on food or soil. Here they germinate and produce new plants. It generally happens in non-flowering plants such as molds, yung mga amag, fungi, or yung mga kabute, and then bacteria. So in spore formation, a spore, which is an asexual reproductive body, germinates and develops into a new individual. So one of its form are molds. Nakikita natin sa tinapay kapag inaamag na sila. So molds are microscopic fungi that live on plant or animals matter. Molds forms from tiny spores that floats around in the air. So when some of these spores fall onto a piece of damp food, they grow into molds like bread molds. So usually nakikita natin ito sa mga tinapay, pero they are also the decomposers of wood. So sometimes animals too. So may makikita tayong mga amag, may mga molds sa animals, dead matter. So yun yung mga bagay na yun. So they reproduce via spore formation. Okay, so next type is all about regeneration. So regeneration is an asexual method of reproduction. In this process, if the body of a parent organism gets cut, so then each cut part can regenerate and form a whole new organism. So buo siya mismo. The whole new generation of organism is new from its body parts. Then this happens because when the body of organism that can undergo regeneration gets cut, then the cells of the cut body part divide rapidly and form a ball of cells. So these cells then move to their proper places to form organs and body parts. Regeneration occurs in both plants and animals. We have hydra, lizards, starfish or sea star, and planaria undergo regeneration. So this is an example of planaria. As you can see, the regenerated part now is the new individual or organism. Then we have the lizard. So this is the original part. So if the tail of the lizard gets cut, then what will happen is that the cutted part will become regenerated. And then we have fragmentation. So in fragmentation, it occurs multicellular organisms, be it in plants or animals. So in this process, sometimes we can interchange fragmentation to regeneration. But when we say fragmentation, those small pieces becomes the new individual. When we are talking about regeneration, those cutted part will regenerate into a new individual. Okay, so in this process, the multicellular organisms breaks into two or more pieces on maturation. So each piece then grows into a new organism, Spirogyra, which is a plant, and sea anemones, which is a sea animal, and planaria, a free-living flatworm. So it undergo the process of fragmentation. So meron siyang mga fragments or yung small pieces na yon ng organism can grow into a newly developed organism. So this is planaria, same as with the regeneration. And then starfishes or sea star, hindi kasi siya fish. So, hindi siya tinatawag na talaga actually a starfish, but sea star. So, itong mga sea star na to, when you cut the thread parts of it and then you let it go to the ocean, then those small pieces of that starfish or sea star will grow into new individual. Okay? And then